It's so great to see all of you here today. Welcome to First Unitarian Church. Welcome to those who are joining us online. If you're visiting with us today, either online or in person, you're our honored guest, and we're so glad you're here. I invite you to stay after service, stop at our welcome table, get to know us a little bit, have a cup of coffee. If you're online, we have a coffee hour online, and we'd love for you to stay after worship and get to know our folks as well. I have a few announcements as we get started. First, a pledge update. Thank you to everyone who has turned in your pledge card. Our total this morning, without anybody who contributed at 9 o'clock, so far, 322,274. I know! Give it up! Great news, great news. Now, it means we have 177,000 left to go. If you haven't turned in your pledge card, we would love to have it by March 19th. That's our celebration Sunday. That's the day that we want to be able to say, we did it. Now, one reminder is that we do ask for folks to turn in a card every year. Even if you're not making a change, please go ahead and turn in a card for this year. That way we've got your updated information. We know whether you're making a change or not, and we'd love for you to bump it up a little bit. But whether you are or not, we'd still love to have that card. So please get it into us by March 19th. And thanks in advance. Didn't it feel great to applaud and make a little noise? If you like to make a little noise, I want you to come back here tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. 6 to 8, we have a drum circle. Come and make a joyful noise, right? Holly Stewart, she's down below. Yep, she's in charge, and she'll keep you in line. So if you want to have fun and make music together, come back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. I want to give a shout out to our middle school class. Middle schoolers, woohoo! Made over 50 meals for the Pamela Atkins Resource Center for unsheltered folks in our community. Big thank you to middle school and big thank you to the parents. Yep. Such good stuff. We will have child dedication here in this room on April 2nd. That's a Sunday. It's Palm Sunday, if you follow those sorts of things. 11 and 9, both services. This is not just for babies, but for any of the children of our congregation to be dedicated to our community. So if you are interested in that, please reach out to Amanda, who's our Director of Religious Education, and she'll give you the information that you need. And finally, come and join us. Oh, I told you wrong, Jim. I'm sorry. It is March 19th. March 19th, potluck. It's to celebrate spring. It's intergenerational, 0 to 100. We want you here. Bring a dish to share. Low key, no program, just hanging out and making community together. So March 19th, it's at 5 o'clock. I think that's everything. And welcome back to the pulpit, our lay minister, Nancy Mose. It was great at 9 o'clock. It'll be twice as good here at 11. Can't wait. And now we begin our service by lighting the chalice with words that may be familiar to many of you, written by James Vila Blake. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn, number 345. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together.
It was a rainy, cold Saturday morning, and I just wanted to stay in bed. But there were newspapers to deliver. Why did I ever want to be a newspaper delivery girl? For those of you too young to remember, young people, I was maybe 10 or 11, used to deliver the newspaper to your doorstep early in the morning with papers in a bag over their shoulders that had papers in the front and the back. My sisters and I would walk or maybe ride a bike. Rain was the worst. You had to put them all in those plastic things. It was a big pain. But I'd committed to the job, so I got moving. Growing up, the value of commitment was important in my family. If I made a commitment, whether it was to be on the volleyball team, to accept a shift at work, or to help my mother with dishes, I was expected to follow through. I couldn't say, oh, I don't feel like playing volleyball anymore, or that shift's at the same time as my date, or there's just too many dishes on fried chicken Sunday. I was held to my word, and even though it was exasperating at the time, the lesson it taught was real. Do what you say you'll do. It was with this value that I approached many things as a young adult, and you might expect that I would have rebelled and avoided commitment. Oh no. I continued to make lots of commitments. I signed up to do the honors program. I wrote a thesis. I agreed to be in leadership roles in my student organizations. I got married. I kept on committing myself. As a mother, I was president of the Mothers and More group. I wrote the newsletter. I did our playgroup address book. When my kids hit elementary school, I volunteered for Reflections and Meet the Masters art program for the science fair. You might say I actually have a commitment problem. There is something about jumping in and getting something done that is in tune with my values and my work ethic. I have a ridiculously hard time not volunteering. And while that's just sometimes an issue for me, it is also as so much of my personality that I don't think it will change. Most of the time, the things I volunteer for involve a lot of time spent with others. I find that I really feed off the energy of a group and the relationships that I sow during these events. That's how I've met some of my best friends. Stephanie in the back office, Christina. Through the commitments that I've made to different mothers groups and schools, our relationships have blossomed over the years, fed by our love for our kids and for each other. So while I may need to prune some activities from my schedule, I'm deeply committed to fostering relationships with others. I want to fill my life up with things that don't just hold a space inside me until something better comes along. I want to fill myself up with meaning and relationships. My latest commitment is to kindness. There is so much ugliness in life, and people are desperate for kindness. I think my faith calls me to this through shared values of equity, dignity, generosity of spirit. I think about this often at work in the library. Some people are so filled with gratitude for the slightest thing that you do for them. It's pretty easy to be kind to them, to smile, to be friendly. Then there's the other folks. The person who complains that you don't know what you're doing on the computer, or the elderly gentleman who always wants to explain just how liberals have ruined everything. It's a real challenge to show kindness. But if I put in the time and effort, I might find out that the elderly gentleman's wife is ill, and he worries about her a lot. Whether the woman was denied a medical procedure that she needed and was needing to send in copious amounts of information to the insurance company. After learning some background information, I'm struck by how a small bit of kindness can bring connection. Being kind provides a huge return on investment. Now, when this gentleman comes into the library, he avoids talking politics to me. We just catch up on how he and his wife are doing. After not seeing him for quite a while after the pandemic, he came in recently. He had been to a new branch that had opened that was closer to his home, but he told me he preferred to drive farther to see a familiar, friendly face. We had a nice chat before he went to read his Wall Street Journal. Kindness pays. It brings our faith and values to life. Being kind has always rewarded me as well as the person I intend to bestow it upon. I'm glad that I've made this commitment to myself. And just like that paper route, I will strive to keep this commitment to kindness, even in the rain.
Now's the time for our offertory. I was thinking a lot about this as I was listening to Nancy. Not just that it's true, liberals did ruin everything. May we continue to ruin it all. Put some money in so we can ruin more things. But also really the idea of commitment, right? What are we committing to as we come here? Are we committing to a place that keeps us safe from the outside world? Are we committing to working on ourselves? Are we committing to coming here so that something might change within us that we then bring to the world that's in so much need? For me, it's decidedly the third, right? That if it's just left up to me, honestly, I quickly go into not a very great space, right? Like, I need you. I need this purple hair right here today. Truly. It's like, this is my daffodil for today. Like, where are the daffodils? I need you in my life. Or my life becomes very bleak. As you remind me of what I am here to hope for. So, thank you for coming here this morning. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for your commitment to showing up for one another. And let us come to be transformed, because the world does need us as transformed beings. The offertory will now be accepted. Thank you. If you were to give a brief summary of Darwinism, and by brief I mean one line, and I don't necessarily mean what you personally think about it, but like as a culture, I was talking to my mom about this, and she's like, well, it's more complicated than that. I'm like, no, just the one like pervading statement that people, when they think about the theory of evolution as given to us by Darwin, what would you say? Survival of the fittest? Is that what you think people would say? For the most part, as a culture. What does survival of the fittest mean to you? He's been waiting since first service to do that to me. The fittest survive. What else? The weak don't. Other thoughts?
People get left behind.
People get left behind.
Animals.
Animals. Yeah. What kind of culture does this build? Selfish one. Combative.
Dominant.
Yeah, a lot of dominance. What evidence do you see in terms of impact? Where do you see it in our culture? Capitalism. Let's just go for the big one. Yeah, capitalism. Homelessness, 1%. What I find fascinating and perhaps a little bit ironic is that the people I stereotype as proponents of the survival of the fittest ideology in the political realm often position themselves religiously in opposition to evolution in Darwin. But it's not just the religious right that views evolution as contrary to God. Right? The new atheist movement also chooses evolution as truth and God as false, as if one position obviates the other. And it feels like we've reached a point in our political and religious culture, for large portions of our population anyway, where you cannot hold both as true. We tend to refer to the 17th and 18th centuries as the Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, because of the intellectual and cultural movements that emphasize reason over superstition, science over faith. And some of these great thinkers introduced or developed on ideas like religious tolerance, individual liberty, the meaning of happiness, the scientific method. We are a product, as Unitarian Universalists, we are really a product of this great movement, right? The 19th century
is sometimes referred to as the Age of Revolutions, as the logical conclusions of Enlightenment thought were pushed into the lived experience. So in part, this meant actual revolutions against kings and colonialism around the world, but also a revolution in the idea of what it means to be a human, which we might see most prominently in the widespread abolition of slavery in the 19th century. A cynic might point out that slavery really didn't work well for the Industrial Revolution, which was taking place, and that the bondage of humans, getting rid of that, gave way to unfettered capitalism. But this also gave rise to revolutions in political thought. You see Marx and Kropotkin. Mark Twain referred to this era as the Gilded Age because of the glittering surface masked the culture of rot, corruption. And of course, Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace introduced the idea of evolution, which reshaped our understanding of our world and, more importantly, who we are. The theory of evolution is often seen as attacking the foundations of religion, and in particular the Bible, but in my opinion, philology, or the study of language, actually did much more to undermine the authority of the Bible than the theory of evolution ever did. In the early 19th century, German scholars of language, philologists, realized through the study of vocabulary and grammar that the Bible was written over many centuries by an assortment of editors. And they were able to see this for the first time in an accepted way, that one line of Scripture was often followed by another line of Scripture with a very different tone and used very different words. And they realized this was because they were written in multiple eras. And, today we might imagine reading a book that had one line by Shakespeare followed by another line by Toni Morrison. And we both know Shakespeare and Toni Morrison, so we would see the dissimilarity, but the voices are so interwoven in the Bible that if you only used that one document, well, it might seem coherent. And it was only when the philologists compared the Bible to other documents found in these archaeological digs that were going on in the 19th century that they realized how inconsistent the writing of the Bible was. Ralph Waldo Emerson's older brother was studying in Germany at the time, and he would write letters home. So, you wouldn't believe what I'm learning, right? Which influenced young Emerson to leave the church, leave the Bible, and walk out into nature, taking a huge portion of the nation with him. The fruits of the seeds sown in the Enlightenment were being reaped, and the belief that human beings were capable of fashioning a better world, well, those ideas were becoming accepted. But as we pushed God off the throne, something was introduced that we couldn't see at the time. Most of us, anyway. Nietzsche is famous for saying, God is dead. But like many quotes, this one is often used in a self-serving way and rarely puts that line into context. It's a magnificent passage from his book, The Gay Science, in a section called The Parable of the Madman. And it reads, "Haven't you heard of that madman who in the bright morning lit a lantern and ran around the marketplace crying incessantly, 'I'm looking for God, I'm looking for God'? Since many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then, he caused great laughter. 'Has he been lost then?' asked one. 'Did he lose his way like a child?' asked another. 'Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone to sea? Did he emigrate?' Thus they shouted and laughed, one interrupting the other. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. 'Where is God?' he cried. 'I'll tell you, we have killed him, you and I, We are all his murderers. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. I don't lament moving on from the Bible as the authoritative word of the Lord. The Bible is fraught with problems. For every lyrical passage and insight into human behavior, there seems to be an equally troubling passage encoding or enforcing a form of oppression. It's a collection of writings that at times offers inspiration, but not one that I take as a guidebook for my life. But with the marginalization of the Bible, and relatedly God, humans began searching for new authorities, and they were us. The 20th century became the era of introspection and the realization of our own will to power. God became whatever we decided was right for us. We abandoned churches and developed analysis and therapy. Our failures and our successes were due to our own ability to rise or not. But on the edge of the 21st century, we find that we are not happy, and the environment is groaning beneath our demand for every product created to satisfy our endless appetite and our desires. The promise of a future of wonders and ease is here. It's been realized, and yet it feels hollow. We hate ourselves. We hate ourselves, and it only feels like it's getting worse. To be clear, I am not calling for a return to an earlier age. There was no golden era when things were better. I do not believe in making anything great again. Because it was never great. Not for most people, and even for the ones who it was great for. It wasn't even great for them. The religion that people began to abandon in the 19th century and that we're still in the process of leaving. Some of you left last month. And it's amazing. We love you. And we love that you're here. Because that type of religion destroys people's self-confidence. It blankets people in shame and makes them feel separated and isolated, and that they deserved punishments because they're bad for some reason. And if you try to talk to other people about it, you're often greeted with meaningless platitudes because those friends are not really listening to what you're saying. And they say, don't give up on God. God is love, or God is brave. Which pushes people into a deeper space of rejection just to survive. Truly. And I understand why I hear people say, well, nature is my religion now, right? Because there's no pressure to have these types of harmful conversations. But nature isn't a religion, because religion is about relationship. We misunderstood the survival of the fittest. We grossly misunderstood it. We believed this meant something about our individual advancement, but it is not. Survival is about our communal evolution. Over the past few decades, through developments in the fields of neuroscience, we found that the story that we tell, that we are utilitarian, wired for aggression and violence and self-interest, is not true. We needed the story to deconstruct and detach ourselves from the bonds of an old way of being. And it was important. We needed it to survive. We needed to destroy so we could move on and survive and evolve. And that's good. That's fine. But this story has reached the limit of its usefulness. And also, it's just not true. We are actually wired for sociability, for attachment to one another, for affection and companionship. Our first drive is not to compete, but to belong. Our first drive is empathetic. We had to reject so we could get away from people. But in doing so, we isolated ourselves within a tomb of individuality. Within our brains, physically, we have something called mirror neurons, which allow us to feel what we observe. If you're angry, I can feel your anger. If you're joyful, I can feel your joy. Through MRI machines, we've been able to see that when neurons in your mind light up because you're feeling rejection or relatedness, the same neurons light up in my mind. We are wired for connection. We are connected. The stories we have been told about who we are as living beings are not true, not just the ones in the Bible, but also the ones that make feeble claims to science. Like, that's bad science. The ones that tell us that we are only out for ourselves. Biologically, we are actually out for one another. The evolution of the species relies on empathy and kindness, which frankly is a problem because it seems that we hate each other. How shall we comfort ourselves, writes Nietzsche, the murderers of all murderers, what was holiest and mightiest of all the world, of all that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? And so we did. The revolution was important. Deconstruction of religion was essential. But we pretend like we're not living amongst the ruins because we have all this glittering shit piling up in our storage units. The madman is crying out, "Where is God?" Which I would translate as, "What happened to the sacred?" And it's not some phony nature is my religion now. Because that's just another form of commodification fashioned beneath our unassailable obsession with individualism and the indomitable me, the indomitable I. The process of empathy, in many ways, is really amoral. That is, it's neither immoral nor moral, but rather without a predilection one way or the other. And I suppose, although nobody tried to do this after the last one, but I suppose during coffee hour, I'm open to convincing arguments of, why empathy inclines us towards a moral response. You can try. Fear, anger, frustration feel bad, feel isolating, and I would like to believe that we're drawn towards those, them, who express joy, love, and relationship. I would like to believe that, but I don't know if that's actually true. I believe that I feel what you feel and that you feel what I feel, and I feel better when you feel better, but I'm not sure that empathy actually leads me in that direction. It gives me the opportunity to go there, but empathy also offers the opportunity to follow the rabbit hole of fear, anger, and frustration. This is the source of power for Fox News. They are generating an empathetic response. It's just not one I agree with. We do have agency in our lives. Our futures are neither predestined nor predetermined. And we are not isolated individuals free from influence either. When we are surrounded by negativity, we take on that negativity. We're biologically programmed to do so. When we're surrounded by positivity, we take on positivity. We are biologically programmed to do so. And I would like to believe, not just because it, justifies my salary, but that there's a spiritual dimension to life that helps us transform toxic behavior into healthy behavior. But where is God now that we've killed him? What do we do with the madman's interrogation of this evolutionary process? Where is the sacred? We know it's not in our relationship to the Great Salt Lake. We cannot live forever in deconstruction. Evolution requires creation. Solve et coagula. The larva dissolves into the chrysalis, which regenerates into the butterfly. When we ask ourselves, who do we want to be in this world? What do we want our lives to mean? We are confronted by the issue of incarnation. The chrysalis into the butterfly. The passage of something that is larger through us into the flesh of our bodies. Now, some people come to this church to get away from the other church. I get it. I get it, truly. You need to survive. But the true purpose of church is not to give you an interesting sermon or beautiful music. It is not to give you a place to go on Sunday. It is not an intended destination for like-minded people. It is a place for us to reimagine and regenerate the sacred so that we might return the sacred to the world. It is the place where the divine can become flesh. It is a place for us to feel the transformative power of the sacred as incarnation, as a place for God to be reborn, as a place for us to become the hands and the feet of the sacred, not to be God. That belief has led us to the lip of destruction. But the spiritual path of being in relationship with the sacred, and I believe that this can happen, that this can occur by cultivating the discipline of empathy, the discipline of kindness. I don't really know what God is or what God is not. The best I can say is, for me, there is a cosmic pull that I feel leads me towards health and well-being. It's a belief I have, That's how I feel. It's mystical and mysterious. It's weak and it's powerful. It is a great interwovenness of being that transcends my ego, my understanding of life and death, my limitations of fear and anger. And when I'm willing to take myself off the throne, which I stole from God, and I get humble, it opens me to love. When I am relying solely on my own willpower, ask my girlfriend. I struggle not to fall into self-righteousness and selfishness. Bless her, truly. When I choose to cultivate a relationship with something greater than myself and allow it to inform my behavior, my fear, anger, my isolation, they all lessen. I see that I am not in competition. What could that even mean? Am I in competition with the snow? It seems like sometimes we are. Where are these goddamn daffodils? But I'm not in competition, right? And when I can really feel that, it allows me to embrace the world around me. The world needs healing. There's a lot that's positive and there's much that's negative. right? The changing climate, the growing inequality, the vast amounts of weapons, the prisons and schools that are forged in these furnaces of efficiency and markets, the cultural belief that the survival of the fittest means that for me to thrive, I have to deny you access to what you need to survive. All of this has brought us to the lip of extinction. But there is a solution. Sorry. It's a spiritual solution. Sorry. It's the decision to embrace relationship and the practice of incarnation, of becoming the butterfly. You are not God, but you are sacred. I would like to take you on an exercise of imagination. If you're willing, close your eyes and imagine this church, imagine this congregation of people assuming a mission of healing. Not healing you, but healing others, people who do not come here. A mission of healing the world. Imagine a church active in the public sphere, not performing what we call social justice, but rather performing acts of empathy, performing the act of gifting love to the world. Imagine offering the sacred flowing through us, offering it to others so they might carry it on to still more people. The empathetic response will leave them transformed. The offering of the empathetic response will leave you transformed. And the world will not be the same afterward. Imagine a spiritually ambitious movement seeking a new relationship with the sacred, not as a subject, but as a partner, in order to transform our world in love. We will do this by using our bodies as channels, incarnating the divine, giving it a home, and then offering it as a gift. Imagine a congregation of ambassadors of love. You may open your eyes. The God of the Bible is dead. We killed him. Then we usurped the throne, feasting on our own arrogance, declaring ourselves masters of the universe, only to wake up from our debauchery and see a living nightmare looming on the horizon. And unfortunately, there are still many drunk on the power of our individuality, too many, really, and they refuse to see what is coming. Survival is about relationship. The fittest among us are those who hold companionship as their highest value, companionship with other human beings, companionship with the animals, companionship with the lake, companionship with the snow and the water, companionship with the sacred mystery that weaves us all together. Empathy in this way becomes an art of living, a sacred solution for the world. We are still evolving. We are always evolving. By allowing our bodies to be the sites of incarnation, we transform. We channel evolution into divine transformation, which leads to restoration. We are biologically designed to relate. By interweaving our biology with the divine pull towards health and healing, our purpose becomes restorative as we sink into solidarity and intimacy with all of life. You were designed to love. But we cannot answer the question, where is God, on our own? The seeking of God is not an individual affair. It requires another, so that the lonely I can become the related we. And this is difficult for those of us raised in the shadow of modernity, which worshiped at the altar of individuality. We broke the world into a million little parts so that we could free ourselves from a story that no longer worked. But in doing so, we separated ourselves from the world. Where do we learn to belong again? This is the purpose of church. It is not the sermon. It is not the music. You are here to learn how to belong. We are not bound by a nation or a religion or the color of our skin. We are bound by the empathetic response of the sacred flowing through us. The looming nightmare feels overwhelming, and for the culture that worships the individual, it will be. But for the culture that worships relationship, that worships belonging, all things are possible. Amen. Please, that's nice. Okay. Please join in singing our hymn. It's in the teal hymnal. You embarrass me. It's number 1029. 1029. Love knocks and waits for us to hear. Source of life, God, my darling, my darlings. Inspire us to follow the call of empathy and kindness, to walk out of this beautiful sanctuary into the world with the mission of witnessing the worth and the dignity of every being. The humans, the animals, the Great Lake. Awaken us to our interwovenness, allowing us to drop our attachments to birth and death, to the fences we put up, to to right and wrong, where we all come to rest in Source. And fill us with grace so we might lay down our need for destruction and deconstruction and pick up the call of Coagulove, the call of creation, so we might invite the world into the sacred belonging once again. Amen. Thank you so much to the bell choir. Woo! Amazing. Yeah. David, all right. Palmer, Monica, Nancy, sorry I stole your homily for the sermon, but it was awesome. Thank you so much for setting me up. And everyone who joined today, it is great to belong to you. Join us for coffee and cake. Come on out.